I've really tried to steer clear of this topic because I feel like it's been beaten to death and it's become a little bit overused. And that topic is narcissist. Now, I wanted to make this video because a client came to me a few times about if they are dealing with a narcissist, if they're dealing with someone who's a dismissive avoidant. And in today's video, I want to go ahead and talk to you guys about the narcissistic person and dealing with someone who has an insecure attachment. How those individual attachment styles will react to dealing with another person who is narcissistic. Thank you for sticking around. This is your first time viewing me. Do me a favor and subscribe to the channel by clicking that subscribe button and ringing that bell so you're notified for all the newest coaching content. But if you want my help personally, the quickest way to get into contact with me is through my website at www.fruitfulseeds.com. Thank you. In today's video, we're going to talk about the narcissistic person and dealing with someone with an insecure attachment style. And I'm going to break all of these things down for you. I'm going to break down what each person will see if they have an insecure attachment and they're dealing with a narcissist. And we're going to start with, the very basic definition of what a narcissistic person is, because we all have narcissistic tendencies. And I talk about this so many times. Narcissism, to a degree, is necessary when you're going out and you're in the working world and you're competing. Let's say, you're graduating from a college and you have this position that has 500 different applicants. You're going to have to feel like, all right, I'm the best at this. And you have to do what you have to do in order to compete in that world. But here is where it becomes unhealthy narcissism, is when it's self-fulfilling, self-gratifying, it's tearing down other people in order to get where you need to be as that narcissistic person. And there is, of course, a sliding scale on narcissism. And it's way different than what a lot of people fail to mention, which is NPD, which is a bona fide narcissistic personality disorder. That's a whole disorder. That's something that is very rare. I'm going to first talk about the anxious preoccupied person. And if this is your first time viewing my channel, I'm going to give you a very brief overview of what these individual attachment styles are. Then the anxious preoccupied person, which is what I am in recovery, I'm more secure now these days, is someone who is constantly worried about rejection and abandonment, right? And this is kind of rooted from childhood, all right? And I want to say kind of, I mean more likely, unless you got into a relationship with someone that was narcissistic and kind of really messed up your attachment issues. A person who needs constant reassurance, and this is my list that I wrote down, wants to merge their lives with their partner, which means you want to engulf them. And it makes it really easy for a narcissistic person to get you on their team as an anxious preoccupied person, because that's all we ever wanted. All we ever wanted was this deep connection, someone who will never abandon us, someone who would be speaking all these different love languages to us, to where we feel like this relationship is going to go the distance. Neediness and distressful behavior, which usually scares their partner away. Now, if you're an anxious person and you're dealing with someone who's narcissistic, let's go ahead and break this down. Now, a narcissistic person is someone who flies in quick and gives you everything that you want right away. They're love bombing. Now, the definition for that is words and action that are going to make you lower your walls as quickly as possible. They want you to feel like they are, the bee's knees, like they are the best thing since sliced bread. And they're going to be doing that rapidly in order to get you to become blind and numb to who they really are. They'll love bomb you, they'll devalue you, and then they'll discard you. And then discard means they'll just, you're old news. They'll just do away with you while they're at the same time love bombing someone else. Because, for a narcissistic person, they don't really have genuine connections with people. Everyone is just a supply, a means to an end, someone to fulfill their right now and to give them that dopamine release and that oxytocin release that they need in that moment. Because from what I know about narcissistic people, especially highly narcissistic people, they're pretty much empty inside. So when they find someone as an anxious, preoccupied person, it's someone who is so starved for that attention and for the things that they're going to be promising them, the future faking and everything. Usually when I see people that I've worked with that has that anxious, preoccupied attachment and they have gotten broken up by someone who was narcissistic, they are devastated and they have no clue what happened, because the discard was fast, it was swift, And it usually happens around that 90-day mark. I have a video about that talking about the 90-day rule. So when that happens, they are distraught. And I'm gonna move on to the dismissive avoidant person, which is a total different response on how they deal with a narcissistic person. All right. The dismissive avoidant, some of their qualities that you'll see with them is, if you are the dismissive person, is they're usually uncomfortable with closeness. They do fear their rejection. So what they do in order to prevent their rejection is they keep people at arm's distance, and they take things extremely slow. They won't promise you a commitment right away. They won't introduce you to the family. They won't post you on social media, any of that stuff right away, because they are trying to be safe and protect themselves and guard themselves. They equate intimacy with a loss of independence. That's another reason why they won't quickly give themselves to you, because they don't want to feel engulfed and enmeshed with someone and feel like they're losing themselves, their sense of identity, because they dealt with a lot of neglect. All right. And since that neglect taught them to be self-reliant, they don't want to rely on anyone. They don't depend on partners, and they don't expect for partners to depend on them. They kind of see it as like, well, I'm a grown man and you're a grown woman, so you don't need me to fulfill your needs or to make you feel whole. The narcissist will usually get frustrated with them because they are not just opening themselves up to them right away. Unlike the anxious preoccupied person, the avoidant is going to be very skeptical. They're going to most likely not be as responsive to the love bombing attempts that the narcissist try to give them. The compliments, the showering of gifts, they probably won't accept them, or they probably will feel really guilty for accepting those gifts, and they'll shut them completely down. That's not to say that the narcissist won't eventually win if they stick to it and they continue to make this person feel safe, heard, understood. Even if it's false safeness and it's false support, they'll continue to do that. There are a lot of narcissists that are able to stick with it in order to, kind of win that person over, even if they're an avoidant person. Now, the discard phase for the avoidant is more like, okay, well, I guess it just wasn't meant to be. It's not meant to work out. I did see some issues with that person anyway. This person was way too clingy. I listened to a therapist, I'm not going to mention her name, but she also said that, the narcissistic person is most likely to be someone who shows anxious preoccupied tendencies, which kind of stung me right here because I didn't think I was a narcissist, but I have been pretty manipulative in my protesting ways in the past. But moving on, we're going to move on to the secure attacher, right? Now, the secure attacher is someone who is comfortable with warm, loving relationships, all right? They depend on their partner, and they know that their partner can depend on them. They're not worried about rejection or anything like that because they're secure within themselves. They understand that if this relationship doesn't work out, I wish you well. Thank you for giving me your time. Thank you for all the memories, but I can just move on. I understand that every relationship has its season. And if this is the season where it ends and we're not meant to be, then so be it. That's a totally different response than any of the other insecure attachers. The next thing you'll see with them is they're not worried about rejection or being threatened by their separateness. They understand that, you have your hobbies, I have my hobbies, you have your friends and vice versa. Go do that. Go enjoy yourself. I know that when we come back, it's going to be a secure base. It's going to be somewhere where we can talk about any issue that we need to. I'm not really threatened by any of your friends. If you do have guy friends, or if you do have, guys that you've dealt with in the past, that's not something that really bothers them. When they deal with a narcissist, the narcissist probably wouldn't make it too far. If they do make it far, go, let's say months with dating this person, there'll be a lot of red flags that the secure person is going to be pointing out and taking inventory of, like, I'm going to put a pin in that. Yeah, that's unhealthy. I see what this person is trying to do. And eventually the secure person will break it off. That's not to say that there aren't certain type of narcissists that can make a secure person insecure, because I've seen that happen a lot, where a person went into the relationship, they had a secure upbringing, they had people that was really there supporting the relationship, supporting that person when they were going through whatever turmoil they were going through. But in the end, the secure person ended up becoming insecure because the narcissist had done played so many games with them and so many tricks. If the secure person was leaning any type of anxiousness at all, they just kind of like pull at him like a sweater, like a loose string in a sweater, and just makes them unravel. Most secure people can handle dealing with a narcissist, and they will see those things right away and ultimately end the relationship, because they understand that this person can't give me what I need. This person cannot be a healthy person for me. So why even bother? Especially with age. Like as you get older, you become a little bit better at having more discernment. It's like I tell people, been there, read the book, wasn't a fan. I know how this book is going to end. And the last one is the disorganized attachment, aka the fearful avoidant. They are usually hot and cold in the relationship, and they are the ones that usually brings the most past traumas to their current relationship. Let's say, childhood injuries, issues with someone that they dealt with in the past, the narcissist that they dealt with in the past, which they tend to have a knack for attracting those people and finding those relationships a little bit more fulfilling than dealing with someone who's secure. It's because they usually have grown up in a very unhealthy household. And we're not talking about just, not having enough to eat one day or not having clothes to wear to school. We're talking, complex traumas. Mom, dad wasn't around. They had to fend for themselves. And on top of that, their environment wasn't safe. There may have been abuse going on. There may have been drug and alcohol abuse. Just really complex trauma. And to be honest, I've seen them go the distance a little bit longer with someone who's narcissistic. And that relationship is usually like an emotional roller coaster. There's a lot of highs and lows there. And because the fearful avoidant can come off as aloof and kind of hot and cold in their ways of showing up in relationships, the narcissist is kind of like a cat and mouse game. They want to chase and try to figure that person out, because at the end of the day, for people who are higher in the narcissism spectrum, it's all about conquering and getting that supply and getting their needs met. And if they're just kind of getting a little bit of breadcrumbs of someone showing up and then pulling away, and even the violence, sometimes they can get violent, just some really explosive, volatile behaviors around it. So they tend to last in those relationships, and I deal with a lot of those people that are disorganized and they're trying to break free of the, I don't know if you would even call it a trauma bond with the people that they're dealing with that are narcissistic. I hope this video helped you guys, and if you found it any value, please like, comment, and share. And you can reach out to me on my social media accounts, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, as I am Coach Court. Always remember, when you go be love, you'll never have to find it.